Welcome, everyone, to the Out on a Limb podcast. And we have a special episode for you all today. You may have noticed, if you've been fans of ours and watched all of our episodes, that usually at least once during that hour, we mention the name Judy Buchanan. She's been instrumental in our lives and is just a beautiful person. And we're super excited to have her with us in studio here at the Treehouse.
Yay.
Yay.
And she is really a wealth
Party
of
streamers.
knowledge.
Yes.
So we're going to talk today about energy work. Now, that's a huge, huge topic. So we're going to just see where this conversation goes. But Judy's been doing energy work for quite some time. Starts kind of with all of us with Reiki.
Yep, for
But
sure.
as we've talked about before, labels and boxes are just not where it's at anymore. And so we're kind of expanding what we do and what we call ourselves and how we operate and just sort of expanding our box in this arena. But for the purpose of this discussion, maybe we need to start with a definition of energy work, or what does that look like? What do we think that is? Judy, what do you think?
Well, I like to use the term energy medicine because we're working with energy, and medicine is something that supports us and nourishes us and helps us to heal, right? So I like to call it energy medicine, which is an overarching term, and underneath that umbrella can be multiple different types of energy medicine. And I would even include, from Western medicine side, something that is a tool like laser surgery could be a form of energy medicine. But then included in energy medicine could be things like acupuncture, hands-on healing, modalities like cranial sacral and massage. And so there's a wide spectrum of modalities that can kind of fit in that overarching term of energy medicine and or energy work, if you want to put it that way.
That's a very good point. Thank you for bringing that up. And I touched on some of those in my first book, the different types of energy healing. And a lot of times it sort of relies on what we call this universal life force energy. Who wants to take a stab at that one?
Universal life force
I think we're all looking
energy.
at him.
I know, everybody's looking at me. I don't know why.
So Reiki kind of defines that as the energy that animates all things.
All
right?
things, right. It's everything that's in everything. So if you break it down to its smallest form, I mean, even just this crystal that's sitting in front of me, there's energy that's animating that. There's actual energy that's moving around in that crystal. So it's the smallest bits of the bits that exist. But what does that mean for energy work or energy healing? It's comprised of tapping into that, I'll say innate ability that everyone has. And some people will disagree with me. No, I don't sense that. I don't feel that. But everyone has the innate ability to heal, meaning if you're a mother or even a father that when their child gets injured, the very first thing you typically do is you're going to place your hands on them. And what's the immediate effect? The child calms down, the child feels comforted and healed. That's in its essence the basic, explanation of the universal life force energy that animates everything, because you're imparting your universal life force energy into your child or into someone else for the purposes of making them feel better, simplistically put.
I love that.
Yeah, so I mean, naturally, all of us physically, our physical structure has energy within every cell, right? So according to Dr. Bruce Lipton, he has said that it's a 1.4 volt potential per every cell that you have. And according to science, it's around anywhere from 50 to 70 trillion cells. So that's a lot of energy. So our bodies operate like batteries. And so literally, like you used the example of a father or a mother holding a child, if that child is depleted of energy in their physical structure, the person that's holding them, we act like batteries. So just like a battery, if something is low in electrons, then the electrons where the higher portion are, there's going to be a transfer of that energy. So we're literally exchanging energy with everybody and everything that we meet. and interact with. And just like you said, you know, the crystal here is moving. And if you go down to the atomic level, it's all just energy moving in little vortices. And then you can go even further and they say it's like quarks, and it's space too. It's space and it's energy moving. And so when we talk about energy medicine, these different forms, you can utilize hands-on healing or transfer of energy. We're facilitating people healing because your cells need energy to operate, right?
Yep,
And so if you're not feeling well, then they're struggling in that arena of energy, or you're depleted of energy, your immune system may be down. And so by providing some form of energy to that person, they can regenerate their cellular structure, and they'll feel better as a part of that.
Now, just to clarify, you don't have to actually put your hands on them or around them, because you can also do long distance healing.
Right, because now we're talking quantum field.
Right.
Okay.
A whole other aspect. Right?
Well,
Yeah.
we can roll back from that while we talk a little bit more, or we can jump into that, whichever way you guys want to go.
I think
'Cause
that's a fascinating part of it. Is, you know, if we believe everything is energy at that point, then there is no conception of, you know, distance. It's all right here in front of me. So if I, even just between myself and Judy, there's distance, but there really isn't. It's just energy. There's nothing to say that as I'm talking to her right now, imparting energy to Judy to give her a lift in her energy, just by my mere presence of saying, you know what, I'm going to impart some of my energy towards Judy and open that channel up and allow her to receive some of that energy, and take that and move that across the world. You can do the same thing.
Absolutely, you can do the same.
Is that also part of the concept of holding space? Or is that a little bit different?
You know,
I just thought you create an energetic bubble for someone, don't you?
That's a good question. I mean, you know, we talk about building a safe container to work in. Excuse me, a safe container to work in. And in essence, you are building a energetic space in order to secure, you know, an amount of energy for healing, or for you know, journeying, as far as, you know, during a meditation or something like that. So yes, I think it to the greater extent, yes, it would be about the same, because you're just confining it to creating a workable space to for you and somebody else to stay in and transfer energy. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but, you know, I mean, in my head, it makes perfect sense. Right? You know, so.
But I'm glad that Judy brought up Bruce Lipton, because, you know, we talk about energy healers, energy work, energy medicine, and people think, oh, what's your level of woo-woo? Where are you on the woo-woo factor? And it's really important for people to understand that this is mainstream now. And this, you know, there's scientific evidence behind acupuncture and massage even, and touch, and all of these sorts of things. And so it's important for people to understand that this has a scientific background. It's not just woo-woo. It's not just crazy. It is actually mainstream.
My favorite mentor, she says, it's not just woo-woo, it's true.
There you go. Absolutely. And for those that are scientific minded, as you're watching this, you know, I'll challenge you, go and find yourself on the web and go to pubmed.gov and search Reiki, or search energy, or anything in that field, acupuncture, and you'll see the litany of research that's been done on it. And I'll tell you, from 2016, when myself and Allison first started working with Reiki, to now, it's exponentially grown in the amount of research that's been done on it. So it's definitely there for sure.
And you know what's interesting is even if it were a placebo, who cares?
Yeah, that's right.
It isn't, but if it even were just a placebo, like even just
that's
the sugar
a huge
cube,
factor in medicine.
exactly, is changing people's attitudes and understanding and their belief that they're going to get better.
Right.
Because you can still give two people the same amounts of medicine, and if one is getting messages that you're terminal and it's not going to work and this and that, then their outcome can be completely different.
You're talking about, at that point, you know, the language that's used. the energy in the language that's used.
Yes.
So if you are, and part of that energy healing is the affirmation aspect, is the positive thinking, is the positive transference of communication.
Because, the energy of your thoughts and your words have an
which
impact.
then that kind of leads to, can you heal someone who is not acknowledged, given permission or whatever, to be healed?
Well, let me stop you right there. We don't heal anybody.
No,
Let me clear that up, okay?
Thank you for bringing that, because I was going to touch on that.
It was a throwaway question.
No, we don't heal anybody. Let's be very clear. Everyone is their own self-healer.
That's right.
Everything outside of you is a facilitator. So even if a doctor goes in and does surgery, are you healed when they take that thing out or fix that thing? No, you still have to heal. Your body, your consciousness, this energy of your physical structure still needs to do everything it needs to do to get you back to where you were.
That's right.
And if you get a cut, is someone going up to you and going, boop, all done, you're healed, see you later? No.
The time's coming.
Maybe in the future,
Yeah.
Yes,
right.
maybe in the future. But everybody now is a facilitator that's helping you. Jump-starting is the word I want to use. Jump-starting your own innate healing inside of you. And that's where energy medicine, especially, in the hands-on touch arena, are so important and so helpful. Because as a human being, what was the first language you understood? When you were an infant, did you understand words? No. You understood touch, love, kindness, energy emanating from that person to you. And you responded to it.
Yeah.
And so back to Samantha's question, because it is valid, and Bruce Lipton's book is called The Biology of Belief, among others.
Absolutely.
So belief does play a role. What role does belief play in one's healing? How important is it?
Well, in terms of, let's think of this another way. Like if what you think, this is what I tell, I work with the police at different points, and I tell them, remember, what you think is telling your cellular structure information, right?
Yes.
So like, if you put on virtual reality glasses and you go and you get into that virtual reality, your space hasn't changed. But you went there.
Right.
Emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, you went there. And all you did was put on some glasses. So what this tells us is where your mind goes, your body follows.
That's right. Yeah.
So if your mind is going to these thoughts of, oh, I'm so sick, or I'm not going to heal, or I'm not capable, or whatever, then you're literally telling your cells, no, you can't do it.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Well, to clarify, like, part of the question, again, this is a throwaway, I know better, but there might be people out there asking this. But so say you've got someone, you're into this stuff, and you have a spouse who's ailing or whatever. You can you go to someone and say, can you heal my spouse?
So
Without them knowing.
Or can you send them energy that will help them heal themselves?
correct.
Will that energy be accepted by that person if they don't believe it or don't want it? Basically, is the bottom line.
So, and that question comes up when we're teaching Reiki and a couple different things, or even in the VA. I mean, if you look at myself and Allison's background and what we've done with the Reiki and taking Reiki into the VA, we're formulating the conditions for self-healing. We're giving somebody the conditions within themselves, just like what Judy was explaining. But for those that, you ask the question, well, if you have a spouse or of someone that's ailing, and can you give them healing? We'll say, can you give them energy throughout their healing process? Well, then kind of look back at the aspect of prayer. In the church, prayer lists go out all the time. They're not getting consent from the people that, are ailing. There's a list of people that,
That was a good point.
Right? It's this aspect of you've got a number of people that just through third party know somebody that has cancer or has some issue, and it's brought up in a prayer chain. And so what does the church do? They rally behind and they send prayers. What's prayer? Prayer's energy. Prayer's an energetic form transferring, right?
It all comes
And
back to
because-
energy.
Right.
Right, and because we're Reiki teachers, we wanted clarity on that because it is, we use William Rand's book, and I think it's fantastic. But in there, well, there's a lot of people that disagree and say that you should only give Reiki when somebody's requested it or when they know, when they're aware of it. And so I really wanted to do the right thing. And so we did channel this question, and we asked,
Oh, good.
you know, the collective, can we go ahead and send energy? And they said, you know what? Even if their human mind would reject it or isn't about that, their energetic self
Their
understands
higher
that
self.
loving energy and will never turn that away.
Their soul
And even
or herself.
if it did or there was excess, it's going to bounce off of them anyway and go
go
up
in-
into the universe. And so
For
the universe
universal
can
healing.
always
For universal healing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
So the energetic body that's within all of us, even if there's no conscious awareness, recognizes love when it's presented.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So then it comes down to whether the person really wants to be healed, or if there's, like what I always look at with life coaching stuff is there a secondary benefit to not healing? So
Yes,
there is that.
There are.
Those are possibilities.
It's all, you know, I mean, that's, and again, great. I think that would be a great topic for another episode, would be this aspect of your contract, your soul's contract, or your pre-birth plan, whatever you want to call it. It goes by many different names. But if you've contracted in this life to live to a certain point, you know, have life to a certain point, and then experience some sort of tragic circumstance that, you know, may be the precipitate to transition, sure, you can have and receive healing energy from someone, but, you know, and again, I'll put a caveat in front of me. This is my belief. You know, it doesn't have to be yours. So
Discernment.
if it resonates with you, take it. If it doesn't, leave it at the table. But if your life's plan is to do this life a certain way, and whatever formulation it is for transition, no matter the amount of healing that's provided, whether it's, you know, Western medicine intervention or energetic intervention, that's the plan I've made, and I have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And you know, so that gets into a whole nother sticky wicket of conversation. But that's
No, that's
how
a good point.
That's how I look at it. It's and it's taken me a while to get there, because you know, how do you reconcile that? But when, as much time as I've spent, you know, working with others' higher selves and really getting an essence of that through channeling, I've come to a really interesting revelation in my own experience of, you know, recognizing there's nothing that's going to circumvent your own contract. You know, you have a contract, and you're going to play that contract out to its fullest. Sure, it's going to deviate, meander, but it's your contract. So, yeah.
I mean, one of the most obvious examples that I give when I do a BQH or a hypnosis session with someone, and they have a list of things that they would like healing for, or like, you know, to explore. And I say, you know, it's important to manage expectations with our clients anyway.
Yeah.
And if they came in blind, for example, then they're most likely not going to be healed of that blindness, because they came in blind for a particular reason, to have that experience of being blind in this experience of being a human. And so it really depends, like Will said, on your contract and why you chose to experience what you're experiencing. But those are conversations we can have with someone's higher self, you know, to explore, because it's important to understand. And even if our energy or our Reiki or whatever we're providing helps to ease their transition, that there's
Absolutely.
always a
Yes.
benefit for
Yes.
it. That's
Absolutely.
always beneficial.
Well, and that leads into when people ask, and I'm going to draw it down to specifically the modality of Reiki. When people ask, you know, what can this Reiki be used for? I always tell them that, first of all, it's non-invasive. It has no known contraindications, and it can be used at any point for anybody at any point.
Yeah.
Babies, adults, any disease mechanism, because the goal of this is to provide loving kindness and to facilitate your own innate healing resources to be jump-started, amplified, supported in this process of navigating your life in whatever way that is. And often we're bringing the person into this deep state of relaxation, whether they're
Which is lovely.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
I just had a session today. So
Yeah.
it is, that is the best.
Yeah, a deep state of relaxation so that they can, basically receive some level of energy. And from a physical structure, we replace our cells all the time. We're getting rid of cells that don't work for us and building new cells. And we need energy to do that, to help heal ourselves. So one of the ways that we get energy is literally from other people.
Yep. And if you're in that constant, and you deal with this with the police department, if you're in a constant state of fight or flight,
Correct.
your body is not receptive to the internal mechanisms of self-healing.
Correct.
So if you're constantly in this state of angst or anxiety or flight or fight or, any one of those, having energy work done is going to help, but you have to work on the mechanisms of the internal aspect of your physicality to get you into that relaxed state.
Well,
Through breath work.
Yeah.
and that's kind of the same thing as if you're trying to lose weight. You can take medicine to help you lose weight, but then there's other things you got to be doing too. Yeah.
Yeah. There's always, it's not the magic bullet.
No.
No. I mean, it's wonderful. It's helped me. I feel my journey with Reiki or energy work or any of that has been phenomenal. I just, Reiki was the instrumental piece for me awakening. And now what's interesting is I'm very, very selective of who I choose to receive any sort of energy work or any sort of work from. And recently I was introduced to a wonderful acupuncturist. And I've had acupuncture before, but very specific acupuncture, battlefield trauma acupuncture and different isolated things. But this is full body, I'll call it medical, intuitive type of acupuncture. And I'll tell you, it's amazing.
Fantastic.
I haven't felt this level of energy moving through my body like this in a long, long time. And I'm very thankful
And
for
what
that.
she told you, which is very interesting, and this gets to the practice of acupuncture a little more, but you have these energy pathways, these meridians running alongside your chakra system and all of that. And so the acupuncture needles are opening up those little energetic pathways so that the energy can flow
Yes.
smoothly and run fluidly. And so what she said to you, which was interesting, is that because you channel so much, that some of the energy just gets stagnant, and it's okay to just allow that to release and flow. And so that's what you were feeling.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic. So this is a real thing.
Absolutely. All of it is.
Yeah.
It's very, very real because we're made up of energy and we have these energetic flows. And, there's even like people have talked about your biofield or your aura. Well, each one of your cells is emanating energy. And so literally the energy comes at least 3 feet from your body, but actually that correlates to your heart. So you can go to Heart Math and look at information about the science around heart and heart energy, but it extends from your body. So maybe this is your bubble, right? Which is literally coming from your energy field. And we can feel people, we sense, we intuitively know, and our body is reading the energy of the environment. When you eat food, do you think your food's like, oh, hello, I am this?
Right.
No, your body's reading the frequency of this energy and transforming it and moving it into the places that it needs to, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And talking about the energy bubble, this is really fun. So we've talked about our pet channelings that we do, and one of the most fun things that I discovered in talking to the animals is how they know when you're coming home. You know that your animals know when you're on your way home before you even know that you're on your way home. And the way that they do that is because they can push their energy field out really far, like throughout your whole neighborhood, and probably even further than that. So when your bubble meets their bubble, so they're sitting there in the little window waiting, and their bubble's out there activating. And as soon as your bubble comes into contact with their bubble, they're like, Daddy's on his way home. And they get into the window and they're looking for you. So those energy bubbles are real, and your animals know it and they're using it on the regular.
That's fantastic.
That is so cool.
So let's talk about maybe our own experiences with energy work, energy healing, energy medicine, because, you know, when I first started exploring Reiki, probably at the late 2014, I had a student of mine when I was teaching at the college level, and she was a Reiki master, and I had no idea, and I was just sort of exploring, and we were talking about, it was an education class, so we were talking about stress reduction in children. And she said, well, Reiki is really good for stress reduction in general. And so anyway, one thing led to another, and she gave me a long distance session. And I have to be honest, I didn't feel a thing. I thought, well, this is relaxing. I laid down, you know,
but it was relaxing.
In the recliner, and I let her do her thing. And she sent me this long write-up of what she experienced during the session. And I thought, well, that's fantastic, but I wouldn't know if I was paying you and you were mowing your grass, or if you were really doing a Reiki session. But so, you know, I don't even think that I felt anything. It was probably a couple of years before I was sensitive enough to actually feel energy when people laid hands on me in an in-person session. So I think it's important for the people who are watching to know that even if you aren't super energy sensitive, know that it's working.
Absolutely.
And I knew that, looking back now, I know that it was moving inside and altering and changing and tuning me up for what was to come, because I tell you, since that time, my life has taken a completely different trajectory. And I know that you, Samantha, said that you were kind of on the same way. You didn't really
feel
tell.
it. Yeah. And when you can't feel it, you know, you're sitting there going, why am I going for 2, 3, 4 sessions? You know, it seems crazy, except for, you know, it's lovely just to have that relaxation time. But, you know, it's like, go for the relaxation time, because that is worth it right there, because you don't ever give yourself that. But yeah, it's hard to understand the benefits that are occurring until you get to that point. And then I think you're going to look back and just go, why was I wasting all this time not going? I could have been so much further down the road.
Yeah.
Judy, what was your experience with Reiki?
So I had spent 21 years active duty Army, and I had gotten ill as a part of that because I was stressed out, not just from work, but from a lot of things, because over time your body remembers its experiences. And so I had a lot of gastrointestinal issues, and I had a total of 6 surgeries. And so I was going to a massage therapist, and she was the one that actually said, hey, I think you need to go try this Reiki thing. And I'm like, what? What is this? Like, I don't know what that is. But she's like, I believe so much in it for you that I'm going to take, because I would buy packages from her, I'm going to take one of my packages and I will pay for the session for you.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how much she believed in it. So this was back in 2013. And the first time on the table, the practitioner was working with me, and I felt a ton of energy moving, and I could feel it coming off my shoulders. I literally got off the table and said, I need to learn this. So within 1 month, I was learning Reiki 1, and then Reiki 2, and then we took a Jikiden Reiki, which is another form of energy Reiki work. And then from then on, I've taken many different courses with many different people, but I've been doing it now since 2013. So it was kind of like one of those like, whoa.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know, because Will's very sensitive to energy too, like you two are. You two are like...
Yeah, so it's interesting. We're sitting across from each other.
right.
You're sitting across from each other. Right. That's the paradigm. Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah. Right. Very similar. I mean, it's, 2015-ish. That's when you first took your level 1 class. And, I'm always up for, being a guinea pig for trying different things. And
I'm with you.
And Allison, for those that have been through Reiki, you need to practice, and you need to practice. So Allison would come home, hey, can I practice Reiki on you? And at first you had to explain to me what it was. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. No problem.
I just got to lay here.
Right. I'll lay here. If you just want me to take a nap, I'll take a nap.
This sounds good.
Right. I'll take a nap. And very similar. So this is, this is the journey where it began for our nonprofit, which is Reiki for Vets, is that Allison started working on me, and at that time I was already enrolled with the VA. They had me on a series of different medications for my lower back, my chronic lower back issues that I had. I mean, everything from gabapentin to other things. Right.
I wouldn't be able to tell that you had any back issues.
Well, right, and that was all That started around 2012. So figure 3 years that I was on those medications, 3-4 years I was on those medications.
Wow.
And as soon as Allison started working on me, just those practice sessions, I could feel something. And now I can look back and say, oh, that was the energy moving. At the time, I didn't have the construct or the understanding of saying, oh, that's energy. I didn't know what it was. I just felt something different in my body. I couldn't really tell you what it was. It was just felt different. Which then, you can look at it as being a doorway, opening a doorway, because that's when I started questioning, well, there's got to be something different I can be doing other than these medications. Because beforehand, I didn't have even a thought. I was like, okay, VA, that's what you tell me.
Wow.
Again, almost 30 years in the military. Military tells me to do something. Okay, I'm going to walk that line. I'm going to do what they tell me, right? So I investigated options at the VA, and they said something about a pain management clinic. And I was like, hey, what's a pain management clinic? Well, you got to go to this orientation. Well, when I go to the orientation, the very first thing they're talking about is acupuncture. They're talking about breath work. They're talking about Tai Chi. They're talking about yoga. They're talking about holistic things.
And this is the last course of treatment.
This is the very last course of treatment.
Rather than the first.
Wow.
So I got introduced to the doctor there, and through his help and with the Reiki and with his acupuncture, which was specialized, it was localized, not general or throughout the body. I convinced him to help me wean myself off those medications. And over the course of a year or so, year and a half, I was able to wean myself off of all those medications, those pain meds. The only thing that was left was ibuprofen, which, we all got that sitting around the house anyway, right? So,
but you can get off of that too.
Right. So, yeah.
It's not good for you. You might have it around your house, but it's really not good for you.
So around 2016, that's when my energy channels were fully open, because I too was like, I got to learn this for myself.
Yeah, I've got to figure it out.
Right. I got to figure this out.
Exactly.
And then take level 2. And then at that point is when energetically I was being loaded with information. This has got to go into the VA. This Reiki has got to be in the VA. Approached the VA, and they said, with open hands, they said, if you want to take and build a volunteer program for this in our Charleston VA, we'll give you full reign. We'll let you run with it. And so we did, and that's the onset of Reiki for Vets. But to get to the point, I weaned myself off of those drugs with the help of the VA, and that was in mid 2016, and I haven't been on any of those pain meds since.
Right.
Since.
It's a big deal.
Yes.
That is amazing.
Just, and I associate that with creating the conditions within my body to be receptive for my own healing.
Bingo.
Not anything that Allison was doing other than putting me into a state of relaxation and starting that process for my body to do self-healing. And that's all we're talking about. You can call it Reiki, you can call it hands-on healing, you can call it, whatever you want to call it. But ultimately, the practitioner, the facilitator, is creating a condition within the body for you to begin your own healing process.
They're a cooperative component.
Yes.
It's just like one of my favorite words.
And this is why we said earlier that you're your own self-healers. Like, don't expect somebody outside of you to fix it.
Yep.
It's that we're creating the conditions that allow for that transformation.
Yep.
So, we like to say that Reiki is the gateway drug.
Yeah, the gateway drug to all things
And I have
spiritual.
a feeling Samantha could talk about why we say Reiki is the gateway. What did you experience? Just tell us briefly without breaking any kind of confidentiality. But what would you like to share about your energy session?
It's her confidence that she's sharing. So
Yeah. Okay, first it was a cray-cray session. It was wonderful. No, I mean it was amazing.
And this was a session with Judy.
Yes,
today
session
up in
with
the
Judy
treehouse.
today, right here behind me. And it's nice because Judy's got lots of energy, as y'all can tell, and so I wasn't prepared for her to go into all like subtle energy mode, and it was wonderful. So it's always like it's fun to see that other aspect of somebody. Like when you meet them one way and then you see this other side, and it's just like so impressive.
Thank you.
So anyway, she got me up on the table and just make sure you're comfortable, and everything was about we want your body to be as comfortable as possible so that you're focusing on, just relaxing and having your body open and receptive to all of this. And so, yes, I made sure I was quite comfortable. Another pillow here, adjust this over there. And it was lovely. I guess every practitioner has the way that they like to do it. I'm sure that there was a period of time where there were rituals and everyone had to do it kind of the same way. And now we're busting loose and everybody's finding their own creative expression. Judy's, she started off, she's just very quiet and constantly telling me where, I'm going to touch here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to, have my hands on your feet. And I noticed that everywhere you touched, it was just like my body calmed. Like you should be working with animals. Like, you could take a wild horse and that horse would just be going, oh yes, this is good.
Yeah. Animals.
It was,
Right. Big and small. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So, I wouldn't say I guess there's some things you're directing me, okay, relax, and focus on this, but it's just like as suggestions, because I can't just sit there and go, what am I doing? Yeah. And then it becomes, it was like a dance between the two of us. At first I was like, do I say anything? Do I keep my mouth shut? I should have asked you that ahead of time.
Yeah, you can
because
talk.
You never know. Yeah, I found out I could talk and that was okay. Because what you're experiencing, I noticed like shifts in my body, like when I was relaxing, okay, there's a level of relaxation that you're like, okay, I'm comfortable, I'm relaxed. And then there's that next level where you're like, whoa, I'm no longer quite in my body. And you just feel like you're just floating. That was crazy. And then to feel, little bits of warmth and all that kind of stuff. And then, I remember you said, a lot of my people, they see colors. We'll just see how it goes. And all of a sudden I'm seeing these blues turn into this gorgeous, violet purple or whatever. And I just, I was like, I'm getting to see it. Yay, I'm one of those people. I passed. Anyway, I don't know. But the whole thing, going through all of that, and then having you, so there is an intuitive side to the whole Reiki thing. Like I think that there are Reiki people who start off and they're doing the Reiki.
Yeah.
Like I'm saying, they're doing the Reiki.
A lot of practitioners, that's what
And same as massage therapists. Yeah. Like they're just doing the massage therapy, and then there comes that intuitive component. And so that's when the dance really starts to happen, is when you're sensing what's going on in my body. And it's fun to hear someone say, no, I'm feeling this. Okay, this is coming along. And I can feel it happening in my body going, she gets me. She knows, it's like the coolest thing. I don't know how much further I can go.
It's great.
It goes off the charts from there.
That's a good example of a session like that. It is, it's, you touched on a couple really great aspects of and since we're talking about Reiki, as far as, practitioners and their skill set, there are a lot of practitioners that, and it's not good or bad. It's just, that's how they operate. It's Reiki. And that's all they do. And that's...
because Reiki, by definition, really is just opening yourself up to be a channel from that universal energy, source energy, through you and into the client. So that is what Reiki is. But like Judy alluded to, when you can make it an art.
Yes.
When you connect to the quantum field, which is what you're doing when you connect to the all, to source, you connect to the quantum field. And when you do that means you can communicate or have access to everything else in the quantum field. And everything is the quantum field.
Yes. And it's a great example is the difference between myself and Allison. I'm the one that as soon as I started practicing Reiki, I was the open channel for information. We do dual practitioner Reiki sessions. Allison works from the feet towards the center and I work around the head and the shoulders. As soon as I, place my hands on their crown, it's like I'm plugging into like a movie. Not every client, but a good majority of them. It's this beautiful synergy that we start to build, and I can see things exactly, and I understand them at a much different level, and it helps facilitate that space that I'm allowing them to get into, and really allow that energy that's flowing through me to really open and go to where it's needed in the body. And Allison is a great anchor as far as anchoring that energy there on the table in the client. And it's taken years.
Many years,
before she was actually seeing things. And it's really astonishing when she does get the same thing that I see, the same thing that the client sees, and then she's like, "Oh my God!"
Because as humans, we want to be validated, and so it is fun.
And it doesn't mean it's wrong.
No.
If you see something different, you're just seeing something. You're getting to bear witness to something different.
Well,
but when it's the same thing.
At this point now, I trust whatever I get,
Yeah.
and it may or may not be the same thing because it might be additional information.
Yeah, exactly.
But I trust it.
And I think it's just like everybody has intuitive skills. We all have senses, and it's just figuring out for each one of us what is our strongest senses and working with that and helping it to grow. Just like learning any other skill, the more you practice, the more you will get skilled at that. So
And trusting it.
and trusting it. That's really what it comes down to is trusting it, because it is, everybody has these skills. It's just developing them further
Right.
through experience.
Right, and that's what we talk to our students about is that, we explain to you what Reiki is, but we also talk to you about these things that may occur during a Reiki session because, again, when you connect to the quantum field, you might see a spirit guide or a being or some energy or their grandmother or whatever who's coming in to help aid in that healing process.
Okay, so question. Do you think that, again, I know the answer. Do you think that compared to, say, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, well, maybe go back 30, I don't know, what people would experience doing Reiki sessions, being, the provider of the Reiki session, how do you say that? The practitioner of the Reiki session, compared to the amount of information that they are receiving now, what they're getting, what they're giving, what's coming through in sessions. Would you say that has changed or grown or?
Well, one piece to that is that there's always been a distinction between some practitioners get a lot of intuitive information and some don't. And the reason, when Yusui developed this form of Reiki that he had come up with, he had intuitive pieces to that Reiki practice. So like scanning the body, for example, trying to feel for energy or hot spots and things like that. However, and that was in Japan. And when it came over to the West, Mrs. Takata kind of took a lot of those intuitive pieces out because she thought Westerners perhaps weren't as intuitive or
that's a shame.
Didn't have the ability
with that
to do
sort
it.
of
Yeah.
thing as much as the Asian countries are. And so,
But
All
to
humans are
right,
able to
exactly.
but the question is, to your point, the question is, do you think
predisposed.
30 years ago the level, the high level of
I'm talking
information
about
was
the
still-
veil. The
Yeah,
veil has gotten, has gotten thinner,
to
more
some
information.
aspects, yes, the veil has gotten thinner, but I would, maybe my take's a little different on it. Throughout time, the information channel has always been the same. Now, the veil, the way I look at the veil is individual.
True. Yeah. Okay.
For their own individual awareness, right?
Yep. Good
But
point.
for somebody that has the skill set, no, I wouldn't say skill set because that implies that they have to learn something.
Maybe it's your life's journey.
Their intuitive ability to connect to that quantum field to receive information. The amplitude of information has always remained the same. What's changed is the receptiveness to the information, meaning the client's receptiveness to the information. I think it's becoming a bit more accepted to go into a Reiki session and I won't say expect, but almost expect that there's going to be some sort of intuitive reading that's going to take place coming on the other end of a Reiki session. But 30 years ago, I don't think that was at a receptive place for individuals to hear that kind of thing because of the level of, I'll say, underground or persecution that there was in place for metaphysical workers, spiritual workers, or any of that. So it was all kept very hush-hush, very, lowbrow, low-key kind of thing. But now today, I think it's almost expected that you're going to come in, take a Reiki session, and have some sort of intuitive aspect to it from your facilitator.
I guess the reason why I was asking, because like my own understanding, which was very slim, about Reiki back years and years ago, was that it was this energetic modality, and I couldn't feel it, but apparently it was the bomb,
Sure.
and that it was, I had learned something that was, it's still laying hands, it was a different form of energy, and it was, that I could feel that, giving that energy, but I guess it seemed like people were just, that's pretty much what they were doing. Whereas now, like when we were in session, it sounded like you were doing light language.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
So the blending of modalities.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That
Yes.
there's more an
All right.
there's more of an openness.
All right, so let's
So
go there. Let's go there.
I do say I go multi-dimensional.
Right.
Yes,
Let's
you
go
did.
there.
I'm
Well,
multi-dimensional.
let's back up a
Let's
little bit.
go there. I mean, this
So-
is energy. We're
People
talking.
are like, wait, what? What? What
All
are you
right.
talking about?
doing in there?
So we have to. I'm sorry. I'm putting my finger in Alice's face. We have to give a little history on
A caveat.
Reiki by Judy. So
Wait, is this like a different thing that I?
No,
Okay.
we've talked about channeling.
Yes.
You saw that channeling episode.
Yes.
And so really, we're talking about energy in this one. And so it's a
awesome.
matter
Yes.
of bringing forth the energy, however that comes forth.
but it's interesting because when Judy and the two of us, Allison and I, met, and Allison and Judy talked about her Reiki sessions, and it was a great Reiki session. Right. We invited her. Judy came to the house, and Allison was our
We
participant.
did talk about this in one other episode, but you'll hear it again.
Oh, you did?
Yes. And
That's why your name came
That's
up
why your
again.
name came up.
We've talked about you every time.
So
I told her that.
Allison's laying on the table, and she's getting relaxed, and both myself and Judy are beginning the session. Judy's at the head, I'm at the feet. And we both had our eyes closed, and there was a moment in which we both opened our eyes. We both looked across the table at each other, and we were just like, "Yeah!" Right over the top.
So you're
of
getting it like now.
over the top of Allison, and
Yes.
she's like, "Oh my God, what's going on? Nothing. You're good." Right?
It's like Wonder Twin powers
Right.
activate.
Exactly.
So if you want more on that story, it's in part 2 of our ET
They
series.
Yeah.
literally said that. Yeah,
Yes.
that's
And
so
so-
You can
funny.
hear what happened during that
So
fantastic session.
my point is,
Yeah.
Judy was saying, "Oh, it's just Reiki. It's just Reiki." No. What you're doing is not just Reiki.
Okay, so Judy, your sessions have kind of gravitated from a Reiki session into more of what you would call an energy session, for
Yes.
example.
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
So tell us what that looks like from your experience in terms of the energy.
It's a multi-dimensional energy session is what I'm now kind of calling it, if you will,
That's
because I don't know what's going to show up in each session.
See, we're going back to labels again. It's so hard to
I
come
know,
up with a way to
well, how do
describe
you
these
describe
things. Yeah.
like what's
Yeah.
going to happen here or how it's going to happen.
Right.
But having now done this for, I started 2013 and we're now in 2023.
10 years.
10 years. Woo! 10 years of energy work, energy medicine. And so a lot of different things can kind of come into the session when I'm working. And some of that might include using my voice, toning in different ways. Some of it might include light language. Sometimes we go into early childhood. Sometimes we'll go into other lifetimes and connect that way as well. Guides will show up, different types of guides, everything from family members who've passed over to cosmic beings to angelics to a variety. And it's really just pulling on the skill sets from a whole variety of modalities that I've experienced personally in my own healing. And by having it in my own healing, I've learned how to utilize that for others as well. So
I liked the breath work that you were doing.
Okay, yeah.
Because
So
that sounded like it sounded like there was a whole other dimension like opening up.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
just like ooh.
So I do use my breath a lot. Well, breath is
Yeah.
the prana, and we talked about breath even before you getting on the table about how that helps to regulate your nervous system. And so sometimes I even become a surrogate for the person on the table. So what that means is that sometimes I'll start start to move within my own body the energy that they're experiencing so that it
She was
shifts.
breakdancing behind me.
Yeah, I understand. And I'm actually glad you brought that up as far as the surrogate aspect of
Yeah.
energy work, because I think that's also another very
cool.
important, kind of caveat to just, we're talking about Reiki, yes, and we're talking about energy healing and energy work, but this aspect of being a surrogate for somebody for their own, again, I'm going to say healing, but their own facilitation of healing, right? Because sometimes the client or the individual on the table may not be able to get themselves into that relaxed state. Their mind is too active. There's too many thoughts rolling around. That monkey mind is really going to work. And they're like, okay, I'm laying on the table. What are they doing? And all this stuff.
Right.
And you realize, okay, and it's not really you're not taking control, but you're stepping into an energetic space that, I don't even know how to describe it, because it's a very unique place to be when you step into somebody else's energy to help them.
It's hallowed ground.
Yeah, well, and I've done it through my channeling, and it was really an amazing space to be, because it's a very humbling place to be, because you know that you're connecting to someone's higher self or their energy field to really facilitate some deep change that they otherwise can't do themselves. And they're calling for it. They're wanting it from a higher perspective place, not so much their three-dimensional body.
Yeah.
And so that intuitively, and really, people will seek out a practitioner that will do surrogate work, but a lot of times it just happens organically because
That's
you
exactly
feel
right.
it. You feel that need. Yeah, because their higher self is calling for it on the table, and even the person on the table might not even know that that's there, but yet you just have an innate ability to connect to that higher self or that higher presence.
I have to draw something here.
Okay.
That when he started talking about the surrogate thing, I was taking it a slightly different way, because all of a sudden I was like, who said that? And I was like, oh, it was Judy about the surrogate stuffed animal, stuffed bear. Wasn't that you who has that you have this bear
when I do distance.
Yeah.
So when I
was
work
thinking
with
that kind of
people
surrogate. I
in
wasn't even
different
thinking
parts
about
of the country, right,
Yeah.
or across the world. Via Zoom is usually how I do it, and I'll use a teddy bear as representative of their physical structure to connect with them energetically.
It's a little bit different of a surrogacy, but that was really cool.
Because it's representing them, and what we were talking about is sometimes organically. Like, I'm not intending to allow for but it just organically happens, because one of the strong suits, or one of my intuitive pieces, is I feel in my own body often. Like people will come up to me and we'll start having a conversation, and my stomach starts to hurt, and I'm like, do you have a pain in your stomach? And then they'll be like,
get out of my body.
yes, I do.
But this is really good, Samantha, because that, as a psychic medium, you probably have experienced that as well. If you have a client coming and they have some sort of something going on in their body, my guess is you feel it or you're sensing something. So
Yeah, it's all energy.
Yeah.
right. And so that's almost kind of like you're acting as a surrogate to them and their energy.
Because they're just like the analogy that Allison used about the pets pushing their energy out before their human parents come home.
Oh yeah,
and
we're doing the same thing.
The client is pushing their energy ahead of them for a psychic session, mediumship session, a Reiki session. I know, I'm sorry.
Smack me.
I'll sit on my hands.
I'm ready for it.
Right, I'm sorry.
It's going to happen.
But it's because I experienced the same thing. They're pushing their energy out before they get to the session, and you start picking up on physical things or even thoughts that you wouldn't normally be thinking. You're like, oh, yep. You got to check in. You got to check in with yourself. Is that me or is that somebody else?
Well, I like it in that, if you feel, there are times when I start rushing around the house and I'm like, what the heck is wrong with me here, And so the person will come to the door and I'm like, are you okay? And they'll be like, yeah, I'm just a little nervous. And I'm like, you're not just a little nervous.
Yeah.
And because I get that feeling, it's like I bring them in, sit them down and say, let's take a few deep breaths
Yes.
before I even go into anything because
Yes.
of all of that. So you're sensing all of that and, you know,
Yeah.
prepping and it's just, it's
and
all
sometimes
energy.
it'll happen in advance too. Sometimes before the client shows up or before I connect with them in a physical space or even on the internet, like across then there'll be sensations. Or
It's not that we're reading your mind.
No.
It's that we're feeling, we're feeling the energy.
Everybody does. Like
Yes.
everybody, every
True.
human, every mammal does
Yeah,
this in the
yeah.
sense that they're reading, they're feeling into the environment unconsciously and getting information. So we're like radio stations. There's little antennas on all our cells and they're like sending out energy and receiving energy.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this is a great way to bring this full circle because, again, anybody can do this.
Yep.
And for example, we tell our
Class is starting next week. No.
we tell our Reiki students, though, you know, this psychic stuff is not crazy. Like if you walk into a room where there's just been a fight,
Right.
and you're energetically sensitive, even a little
Yeah.
bit energetically
Yeah.
sensitive, you can sense that, you can feel that. Or, you know, I think I made mention of the fact that I would walk on eggshells around my mom. So it was me sensing into her energy. She didn't have to say anything, but I came home
Right.
from school, I walk in the
Yeah.
kitchen,
You
and
just
I'm
knew.
sensing into her energy. You know, what kind of mood is she
You get
in?
quite adept.
Yeah.
Right. Or if the phone rings and the energy of whoever's on the other line is reaching out to you, you know who it is that's
Yep.
calling. So this is kind of common stuff.
Yeah. I did want to say though that though we're talking about energy healing, energy work, you know, and you know, you're kind of, we talked beforehand that, you know, well, we'll let you three talk about it because I'm not really experienced in it, but I'll ask the questions. But there is a very close line between what you do and what we do, because you are, in essence, are healing. When you're having those clients for the mediumship sessions and the psychic sessions, you're actually doing healing at a certain level. So there's not a stark contrast between what you do and those that practice Reiki or some sort of energy healing, because you really are facilitating a space that is healing in some manner.
The rules totally apply. The person has to be, I can offer so much to them, but it is up to them whether they're going to embrace the awareness that they're beginning to receive and what they're going to do with that. And, you know, it's all about healing.
For sure.
And working in the energy.
Yeah.
And having
And it's
fun.
all energy.
Yeah.
It is.
It's all energy.
Everything's energy.
Yeah.
That's a fact. Energy's not created,
Nope.
nor destroyed. It's simply transformed.
That's
There
right.
you go.
Very good. Wow, where does the hour go?
That's right.
Man, that was fun.
That was
Yeah.
fun. Thank
We
you for
may-
being here.
I know. We may have to revisit this again. And,
Yay, this would be fun.
yeah,
I'd
yeah.
love to be a part of this at different points.
so we will have Judy Buchanan's information below, down in the description box if you want to reach out to her and have a session. If you live in the Maryland area, you might be lucky enough to get an in-person session.
That's right.
Or if you live in the Charleston area, she comes down at least twice a year, right?
At least.
Yeah, and so we're excited that we could make this happen tonight. And we thank all of you for watching. Thank you so much for your support. If you found this helpful, please, please, please share with people. The word needs to get out. People are more open than you would imagine at this time. So share this, like it, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join us next time. Thanks again for being with us.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.